That works as well.
Try
A little pinched, so is it okay if I
Oh, yeah.
pull it? It's, I don't wanna mess it up here. It works. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that looks like test. Yeah, that looks like that's working. That might be easier. Then we can leave that one out there. Sounds good. Super.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. Neil was saying, I think, Karl Marx was something.
Yeah, this next one is gonna say, she was gonna be.
But when I saw the. I said, oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Way too many people.
Yeah, so that's pretty much.
Good. Nice to meet you. Come on, I'm gonna have you sit right here.
Oh. Well.
So was I. I was driving from Massachusetts. I need to be down there today, so. Called Madeline and said, I think I'm gonna be here on time, but no, sure.
Do you have your?
I think I left it on the table. Yeah, yeah, I had it set out, but, oh, good, that's it. There's a lot of information for people. It's really complicated. I'm not, it's hard to even,
To explain that,
yeah,
like this whole paragraph.
I wouldn't really even include this information,
Okay.
only because it's.
All right, let's get going.
Yeah.
Great. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight for the information session about Hopkinton Community Power. I am Mark Zankel, and I'm the chair of the Hopkinton Community Power Committee, joined by a number of committee members as well as our power agency partner. So I'm just going to ask folks to introduce themselves.
Sarah Hoffman.
Steve Eckberg.
Steve is the vice chair of the committee.
Madeline Bradley, I'm the communications coordinator for the Community Power Coalition.
And Ken Trauma, the select board representative on the committee.
Thanks all. So we are going to share some slides and step through the launch of Hopkinton Community Power. For those who were at town meeting this year, you'll recall this was one of, I don't even remember what warrant number it was. It was late at night, so you may or may not have still been there. But the Hopkinton Community Power was authorized by the voters at town meeting. And then the select board decided with the recommendation of the Community Power Committee to collaborate with the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire to be our partner in community power and to help procure power on our behalf and administer the program. And so Madeline's here tonight to help us with all of your technical questions. So we're getting to the launch point, and probably you all hopefully got the letter in the mail that may have prompted you coming out tonight, or you saw one of Susan Covert's emails, or perhaps the advertisement in the Concord Monitor. But whatever got you here, thank you for coming. And we'll run through some slides, share some information, and then we'll get through all of your questions and look forward to hearing what's on your mind. All right, let's go into the slide deck. We can go to the there we go. Okay, public information session. Let's go to the next slide, please. Thanks, Neil. So we'll start with a little bit about how community power works. And so we'll start with the source. So we are Hopkinton Community Power by the vote of the town at town meeting and then the decision of the select board to move forward. Hopkinton Community Power will become the default energy supplier for households and small businesses in those on rate G, right?
Correct.
Yeah, small businesses in Hopkinton. So right now, if you live in Hopkinton or you have a small business in Hopkinton, your default supplier, if you do nothing and just move here and set up an account, is primarily Eversource with a small part of the town that's in Unitil. That will change to Hopkinton Community Power for those who are on default supply. We'll talk about that in a minute. That electricity is going to be purchased by the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire, our partner, on behalf of Hopkinton Community Power, and the coalition will be doing that on behalf of a number of member communities. We'll show a map in a little bit. And that energy source or the electricity source will have a number of different options, which we'll go over with different amounts of renewable energy content. So that's the energy source. Then there's the delivery of the energy. How does it actually get to your house or your business or your building? And that will continue to be the utility. So utilities own the poles and the lines, the substations, the transformers. And so nothing changes there, right? Eversource is still going to deliver your power to your home, to your business. Eversource is still going, or Unitil, but I'm just going to use Eversource tonight because it's like 97% of the town or something like that. They will still deliver your power. They will still respond if there is an outage. They will be equally responsive to an outage in Hopkinton as they will in any other community, even though we're on community power. So delivery continues to be managed by the utility. And then there's the community part, which is really why are communities all over the state signing up for community power? Why did the select board create our community power committee? And why did we go through this process, which is really to help people in our community save money on electricity and have a little bit more agency around what our rates are, what kinds of products that we offer to people in our town. Go to the next slide. So how does it work? Community power really, it essentially gives a community buying power through scale by combining the purchasing power of residents and businesses so that by buying together, we can achieve competitively priced, or I would say lower priced electricity. And we can talk more about how you do this, but I'll give you the nutshell from my perspective, which is that a regulated utility in New Hampshire, like Eversource or Unitil, has a very regulated process for how they buy electricity. And they buy it a couple times a year. And whereas with community power, the entity that's buying power on our behalf, the Community Power Coalition, they have a lot more flexibility in how they engage in the energy market. And so they can buy power on behalf of their member communities at scale because so many of us are now participating. Sorry. And so they have shown that they've been able to procure power and provide power at lower rates than the utilities. More flexibility, comparable scale. And I'm just going to kind of step through these bullets. So in advance of the launch, everybody got a mailer. So hopefully you all got a mailer from Hopkinton Community Power sent by the coalition. It gave you notice that the launch is coming, that if you're on default supply, you will automatically switch over on or about October 1st to community power. It gives you the rate structure and compares it to the current Eversource and Unitil supply rates. And it tells you what you can do if you want to opt out, because This is not a mandatory thing. You can opt out before we launch. You can opt out after we launch, and you can opt out at any time after that or opt back in. So you'll have at least until September 25th. If for any reason you are scheduled, you're on default supply and you're going to switch over automatically, you can opt out anytime, at least until September 25th. And you can also choose, you will be assigned essentially a default rate. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But if you want to select a higher level of renewable power, you also can do that before September 25th. So you have a lot of choice. Choice to stay in, choice to opt out, choice to go with our default amount of renewable energy, or to scale up with more renewable energy. And if you don't do any of those things before September 25th and you want to do any of those things after, you can do them after. It's just that it will not apply until the following rate period, meter read period. It takes 1 meter read approximately to switch over, right?
Yeah, which occurs every month.
So as the fine print says, right, most customers that are on Eversource or Unitil are going to be automatically enrolled into our Hopkinton Community Power, which is at a lower rate than is being offered by the utilities, unless you opt out, and you will start with that on your first meter read date, October 1st or later. People have different meter read dates, but that's when you'll start. And you'll start seeing in your November utility bill, we should have put this in the slide deck, but if you look at your utility bill, there is a line that says supplier, and it will say, right now, it says, if you're on default, Eversource or Unitil, or if you're on a third-party supply, it will say, North American Power or whatever it is. If you're switching, it's going to say Hopkinton Community Power, and it's going to have your Hopkinton Community Power rate. So you'll see that starting in December. There's some groups of customers that are not going to be automatically enrolled, and we'll talk about those, but they can choose to opt in. So we'll talk about that in a minute. And then again, after we launch, you can still buy power from the utility if you want. You can opt out, or from a third-party competitive supplier. Totally your choice. You would just pick up the phone or get on the computer, and you would notify Community Power, and that following rate period, they would make the switch, and you would ultimately switch over to whoever your preferred supplier is. So that's how it works. Primarily changes your energy supplier and the associated rate that you pay. Oh, we did have that in here. Great, thank you. So a sample utility bill. This one is from Exeter, and I know it's small print, so sorry, but you can see the highlighted part of it where it says Exeter Community Power. That will say Hopkinton Community Power if you switch over. And again, it will have the rate, which is really small print there, but it will show your rate, and then it will show what is your supply charge, which you already see now. It'll just be Hopkinton Community Power and that rate. Everything else stays the same on your bill. Wish we could save you money on all those other things that you get charged for by the utility, but that's not what we're able to do yet with Community Power. So there are 4 choices for your energy mix that you can choose from. And so let me step you up from the bottom on this chart. So the first column is what's your renewable energy content? And New Hampshire has what's called a renewable portfolio standard, as do most, I think maybe all the other New England states. And that is done by the legislature, and they determine essentially how much of the standard energy mix needs to come from renewable energy. Right now in New Hampshire, that is 24.3%. So if you are on utility default supply, you're getting 24.3% of your energy is coming from renewable content, either The utility is buying that from solar or hydro or wind or other eligible entities, or they are meeting that obligation in another way by essentially financially supporting renewable energy projects through purchasing renewable energy certificates. And you can see that the rates, Eversource right now, 10.403 cents per kilowatt hour. That's how energy is charged. Unitil, 10.506. And what an average residential customer might pay per month based on 650 kilowatt hours of usage per month. So 67, 68 bucks a month.
And Mark, just to be clear, that's the energy portion.
Just the
of
supply,
Electric bill.
right? Just the supply, not all those other distribution, transmission, stranded costs, are all of our favorite line on the utility bill. This is just the supply rate.
Mhm.
So Granite Basic is the default choice that we will have through Hopkinton Community Power. It also has the same amount of renewable energy content, 24.3%. So if you are on default supply now and you do nothing, you're going to be switched to Hopkinton Community Power at Granite Basic. Your rate in this current rate period is going to be 8.6 cents per kilowatt hour. So you're going to pay about 20% less than you would be if you were staying with Eversource or Unitil. And that would equate to saving about 11 to 12 bucks a month. And just a reminder, in New Hampshire, the utilities file new rates every 6 months with the Public Utilities Commission. So this rate is from August 1st through January 31st. And then there will be new rates starting on February 1st. The utilities rates will change. Community Power Coalition's rates will change. So far, the Community Power Coalition has been able to offer lower rates during the lifetime that they've existed. Admittedly, not that long, but a number of rate cycles now. And Madeline can talk more about how they're structured to continue to do that. Yeah,
You want a presentation or?
what's on your mind? Because I think it's fine. And if I want to push it till the end, I'll let you know.
Well, it's two questions. One is, I know what my utility bill is. I don't know how much I pay for the energy part of it, so when I see a bill of, $7, $8, my total bill is $87 a month fixed for the whole year. What portion of that is the source?
A portion of it is supply.
Is it half of it?
It's a little different depending upon how big your utility bill is, but I think it's fair to say about half.
About half, I think
Yeah.
that's a good ballpark.
About
Yeah.
half is probably a ballpark of your bill is supply. And the rest is other charges.
The other charges on the bill aren't gonna change.
Right.
Except that they would normally change in whatever.
Except as they would normally change based on what the utilities and the Public Utilities Commission agree that they can charge for all those other things. Yeah, thanks. So that's Granite Basic. That's the default that you would be on. And then there are these other 3 options for you, which have increasing percentages of renewable energy content. 33% for Granite Plus, 50% for Clean 50, and 100% for Clean 100. And you can see the rates for those. And even if you went up to 50%, you're still, during this rate period at 10 cents a kilowatt hour, you would still be at a lower rate than you would on default supply with Eversource or Unitil. But so depends on whatever matters to you. So you can choose to opt up, but if you don't do anything, you will be on Granite Basic. Let's go to the next slide. And you can change that over time as well. So if you just go on Granite Basic and then a few months from now you say, hey, I really want to go up to.
I was just gonna say too, and we'll get into this in a moment, there are some exceptions of people who will be automatically enrolled.
Yeah.
Great. Commercial rates. I'm going to ask you, Madeline, to speak to commercial rates if you don't mind.
Absolutely. So these, this is compared to the Eversource GV rate, which is for mid-sized commercial customers. And typically on these rates, it's a monthly variable rate. So every month on your utility bill, you're being charged a slightly different rate for your supply. And so when we design our commercial rates, we want to make sure it's the best apples to apples comparison possible to make sure people are getting the best deal. So we also do the monthly variable rates. So when you look at this chart, the text in blue is the default rate. So a mid-sized commercial business would be automatically enrolled to that blue rate, which is the most cost-effective option. Above that in green are just the other options if people wanted a higher renewable content. And then below in the black text, that is just comparing the coalition's monthly variable rates to Eversource's. So for example, starting this month in August, mid-sized commercial Eversource customers are paying 8.61 or 8.614 cents per kilowatt hour, rather than mid-sized commercial customers enrolled in community power are paying 7.4 cents.
Great, thanks. All right, let's go ahead, Neil. So we talked about this during the development of community power and developing Hopkinton's community power plan. Why are we doing this? What are the benefits to the town? More competitive energy rates and more stable energy rates. So if you've been paying electricity bills for a while in New Hampshire, especially in the last few years, you know that the rates have zigzagged quite a bit in response to local and global issues, primarily related to the cost of natural gas. And so what we've seen with community power is, and how community power, I would say, is financially structured, is to try to reduce that rate volatility and also meet or beat the utilities rates over time. So competitive and stable rates, I think, first and foremost. Second is more clean energy options, and that's personal choice. But we did a community survey this winter. We got almost 200 responses from Hopkinton residents, and a clear majority were interested in having access to more renewable energy options. That doesn't mean they'll all take advantage of it, but they were interested in having access to those options. And so you have access to those options with community power. Longer term, community power is set up in a way, and the coalition is set up in a way that member communities can have opportunities to invest, to establish reserves that they can then invest in local energy efficiency, renewable energy, and other energy related investments that the community decides are good for it. We're not taxing ourselves to do that right now, but at a point in the future, if people, the select board and others, thought it was of interest to build some resources to develop more local energy efficiency or other energy related opportunities for town, we can do that through community power. We're not doing that at the outset. We just want to get some lower rates. Of course. Yeah. I mean, so I think I can just say what the feeling of our community power committee was, which is we like to get the program up and running and see how it goes for at least a couple of years and learn from what some other communities are doing, and then see what the appetite of the community is. I don't think we would do anything in that regard without having pretty extensive community conversations, because for me, I would want to feel like whatever it was, and I don't know what it would be right now, I would want to make sure that there was strong community support. If we do nothing other than participate in community power and give people an option for lower rates and more renewable options, that's great. Like, I don't feel like we have to do anything more than that, but we have the option to explore some other things. And I think it would be a little ways out. Does that feel fair to the community members?
Yeah, I'd agree with that and say that I would certainly expect that if we were going to do something like adding a surcharge on for other projects, it would probably go to town meeting for approval.
Cool.
I
Um,
agree with all that.
Great. And it kind of gets at the local control, just giving communities a little more agency over what power we get, where we get it from, what we pay for it. So the committee spent some time looking at different options for who we could partner with or work with to implement community power. None of us are energy procurement experts, and so communities that are adopting community power are partnering with an entity that specializes in this. We had a couple of different models that we looked at. There are some private energy brokers who work with communities. And then there is a nonprofit that was stood up a few years ago in New Hampshire specifically to work with communities and support communities around community power, called the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire. We had representatives from all those parties who came and spoke with our committee. We weighed the different models and the pros and cons of each, and we determined that the coalition would be the optimal partner for Hopkinton. I should say that I think any of the options was a good option. But we thought for a number of reasons that the coalition was the best alternative for us. And the coalition has been our partner along the way, helped us tremendously with the planning and to get to this point. And ultimately, the select board entered into an agreement with the coalition to become a member of the coalition and to have the coalition represent us and procure energy on our behalf and help administer the program. So you can see the footprint. 2 counties, 57 municipal members, 30% of New Hampshire's population. This is all in the course of like 3 years.
So we just launched our first program April of last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So kind of sweeping the state. And that's exciting. So we have lots of good company. We are in the mustard yellow fall 24 launch. And then you can see there's a number of other communities in red that are still in the planning stage, and those that launched this spring in blue, those that launched last year in green. So I think what's nice about this, I mean, from my standpoint is, the coalition is building some pretty substantial purchasing power. And also, we were able to learn a lot from other communities that went out ahead of us about what their experiences were, those who work with the coalition, those who work with private brokers. And I think we'll continue to learn a lot. And the way the coalition operates as a nonprofit is they have a board, they have representation from member communities. There's a lot of information sharing. It's super transparent. The finances are super transparent. The governance is super transparent. And we have an opportunity to participate and to inform and influence decisions that the coalition makes on behalf of member communities going forward. Right now, I'm the chair of the committee, and so I'm the member representative. We're a member community. I'm the member representative to the coalition. If somebody else wants to do that in the future, please let me know. It's really fun and interesting, but it's not a volunteer job for life. And Ken is as he said, is our select board representative to the Community Power Committee, and is the alternate member representative to the coalition for Hopkinton. So we're partnering in that effort. Madeline, why don't you talk about who's not going to be automatically enrolled?
Yes, so there are 3 main groups who will not be or 4. So the first ones will be any customer currently receiving their power supply from a third-party supplier, whether that's Direct Energy or another source. Since you have taken action on your own to say, I want this person to be my supplier, you will not be automatically enrolled. And you are, if depending on your rate and you look at it and you think it'd be more advantageous to opt into Community Power, it's very easy to do. And you can leave this program anytime you want. You can join it and say, do it for a month or two and say, this isn't really working for me. And then you can go back to your third-party supplier or default supplier. My one recommendation is if you are on third-party supply and choose to opt into CPC&H or Hopkinton Community Power rather, just reach out to your third-party supplier to make sure there's no early termination fees. And then our second group of people who will not be automatically enrolled are net metering customers. And that is not due to a flaw of the program, but rather than just a bug. We are working strongly with the utilities at the moment for them to give us the proper data. In return, so we can reimburse people for their net metering. So essentially how it works, you have solar panels on your home, and if you're producing more energy than your home is actively using, you can receive credit for that. And since we're not receiving the data to be able to supply the credit, we chose not to enroll net metering customers at this time. For Unitil customers, anyone in the large general service, so large industrial, commercial businesses will not be automatically enrolled. And then for EverSource customers, similarly, large businesses will not be enrolled.
So let's pause for a minute, because I know I heard a couple of people talking earlier who were on competitive or third-party supply. I just want to make sure if you have questions about any of these right now, or if you have solar and you're wondering what's going on, I just want to give people a chance to ask questions right here.
How do I cancel the third party and join this?
Yeah, so first I would reach out to your third-party supplier to make sure there's no early termination fee. And then you can just either contact Hopkinton Community Power. There's a team of customer representatives. So if you go to the website, communitypowernh.gov/Hopkinton, there's a phone number available as well as an email and an online web portal where you just enter your account number and answer a couple questions. And then that will then go internally to the coalition, and they will reach out to your third-party supplier for you and say, hey, this customer has opted into our program. We'll be their supplier from now on.
They do that.
Correct.
And just the phone number and the website are up on the wall here. They're also in the letter that you all received. But if you didn't get it, or you just come up afterwards, we'll make sure you have what you need. In the back, was there a question? Or... Sir.
So assuming there's no fee for the third party supplier and you want to change, can't you, assuming that I could change like for September, would I then automatically be enrolled? If I go back to EverSource, would I then be automatically enrolled come October if I was with EverSource in September?
Yeah,
Okay, so.
stumped me on that. So
Yes, so it's interesting, and so in terms of billing, so if you are in the middle of a meter read period, so you can cancel your supplier and that will go until September. And then, yes, you would then be on EverSource default supply for that month. And then if you opt, you just have to make sure you opt into Community Power by September 25th, just to make sure we have all of your data in the system ready to go. So then when your meter is read in October, that's when it will start. You will officially be a customer of Hopkinton Community Power once your meter is read in October. So you will see the first time you're going to see your bill say Hopkinton Community Power will be on your November electricity bill.
So if I switch it, I'm with Eversource on my September meeting. I still have to opt in, it won't automatically default, it won't automatically put me on.
I believe so.
Yeah, because I think the coalition notified the utilities a couple of weeks ago of the launch date. And so I don't know that at the very least, I wouldn't feel 100% sure that you would automatically switch over because they probably have a cutoff for when they pulled all that customer data. And so you'd be a lot safer if you then contacted the coalition and said, I want to switch and opted in essentially. So you got 2 steps to take to feel confident that would work for you. Sir. Oh, and then I'll come over to you, Matt, next.
Walk me through this if you don't mind. I've got a third-party supplier, and I do want to join the call-up. So if I call this 866 number, tell them who I am, what I want to do, what happens next?
They will take some of your information, like your account number, name, address, where your meter is located. And so they'll collect that information. That's usually just always on your electric bill. And then they will submit it to the third party to inform them. And then you'll just receive so you contact them and say, this is what I want to do. You give them the information that they need, and then they will follow up and confirm with you and let you know that you are all set, and they'll handle everything else internally. Correct.
They'll take care of midterm, like the middle of the month or whatever. They'll handle that, so I don't have to worry about that.
Correct.
I just want to remind one thing that Madeline said earlier, though, which is it's a good idea to first call your third-party supplier to make sure, to find out whether you have an early termination fee. Some of them do. I used to be on third-party supply and you signed a 20-month contract or whatever it is. So you just would want to be aware of that before you make your decision. If you've got no early termination, then you feel free. And if you have a termination fee, then you would want to think through whether you want to do it now or whether you want to wait till your contract runs out. So I would recommend doing that first and then calling the coalition. I'm just going to go to her first and then over to you.
Locked in for a year, or what is there a lock-in rate as far as you being contracted with the Hopkinton?
So there's not. So we change our rates on the same schedule all the utilities do, just to maintain that apples to apples comparison, to make sure you're getting the rate that is best fitting your needs. And trying to think. And you can come and go from this program as many times as you'd like, and there's no fee to enter or exit the program at any time.
No.
Correct. Anytime.
The only delay you may see is if you opt out mid-month, you might not see that switch over until your next meter reading. So there may be a little bit of a lag, but you can go back and forth as often as you like.
Let's take two more questions, and then we'll get through the rest of the slides, and I have lots more time, but go ahead, please.
You mentioned that you would receive notification once you submitted the request, if you have a third-party supply. How does that notification come? By mail?
Typically email.
How long, if I sign in, how long is that rate good for? Do they tell you?
Yep. So this current rate period goes until January 31st, 2025. And so when you look at your rate, if you go to Hopkinton Community Power website, or if you even go to the state website where they publish all the rates available, it's very clear of what the timeline the rate is. And then new rates get announced at 30-day minimum prior to when they start. So then in February 1st, when the new rate period would begin, January 1st, there would be new rates available for you to see.
Great. Let's go through the rest of the slides. These are awesome questions. So keep them coming, but save them up and then we'll take more. All right. Net metering. I'm not going to read all this. Okay. But this will be up on the town website, the Hopkinton Community Power website, but I'll just kind of hit some highlights. Like Madeline referred to, if you're net metering, which means you have solar on your property. I don't think anyone's got personal wind farms here, so I'm going to go with solar primarily. It means you are a net meter means sometimes you're producing more than you're consuming. You're pushing energy into the grid. Utility pays you for that. And so the net meter calculates the net of your energy use and production each month. Right now, community power can't compensate you for your energy that you sell into the grid. And as Madeline said, she said it really tactfully, but I'll just say it less tactfully. The utilities are being a big pain and they're not cooperating the way they should. And there's some negotiating and wrangling going on. And at some point, they have to provide this information and they will, but they're working through, I mean, in slight defense of them, they don't have all the systems in place necessarily to provide this as readily as they would like or as the community power agencies would like. So they're working through that process. We fully expect that will change. And at some point, net metering customers will be able to opt in to community power. You still could opt in if you're a net metering customer, but you will not get paid for any surplus energy that you sell into the grid. So I have solar. Ironically, I will not be joining community power on day one, but I'm looking forward to when I can. But you could choose to if so, for example, if you have solar and your solar never generates more than you're using from the grid, you're always using more than you're generating, you might decide that it's worth it to go on community power because you're not selling power into the grid. So not getting paid for power you're not selling doesn't matter to you. You can have a conversation with Hopkinton Community Power to help advise you on that, whether that might make sense for you. But you're not automatically going to be opted in. But at some point, this will get fixed. Everyone will play well together in the sandbox. And net metering customers will have an opportunity to opt in a way that will be financially advantageous. All right, so we're getting to the wrap up here. So bottom line, most of you, those who are on default supply, and most Eversource customers who are on default supply will be automatically enrolled on October 1st or after. You'll be at a lower price if you do nothing. You can opt out. You're going to continue to get your electricity from Eversource or Unitil. They're going to continue to fix stuff when stuff breaks. If you have a third-party supplier, you have to opt in and get out of your third-party supply to do that. And we said this at town meeting, it's all self-funded. So there's no additional taxation, nothing that changes in the town budget as a result of community power. The rates that you pay, the rates that we all pay, that all member communities pay, fully fund community power. And the way I think about it is, they're a nonprofit. So the difference between what they're buying, and what they're buying the power for and what we're paying goes to fund the ability of the nonprofit to do this work on our behalf. Instead of going to a for-profit entity and delivering those profits to owners or shareholders. That's my kind of like simple way of thinking about it, but no taxpayer funds go into this. And that's the end of our presentation. So if you don't feel like you have to hang around, but we'd love to hear what else you've got. Other questions? So we want to be as responsive as we can. I'll start in the back and then to you. Oh, good question.
Yeah, I would advise, just to wait. Just to eliminate any risk of being enrolled too early and having to face a fee.
So put a note in your calendar and call in 2 months. Yeah, right. I think that's the, be cautious. We don't want you to get hit with a fee that nobody wanted to get hit with.
And we send out quarterly refreshers. So if you're not, if two Hopkinton residents who aren't enrolled into Community Power yet, quarterly we'll send something in the mail just as a reminder, like, hey, this is an option for you. This is how you do it.
I'm gonna go to you in the front and then you two, and then you.
When rates are being negotiated, does Hopkinton negotiate on their own, or do they work with the other partners within the state of New Hampshire? Who are the coalition who are
Yeah.
involved? So is it in group? Is it
Yeah,
cooperative?
great question. Yeah, so we're, in a sense, Hopkinton is not negotiating their rates. We have engaged the Community Power Coalition to procure power on our behalf. And we, because we're a member, are twice a year, looking at what is the cost of their power, what are the utilities, proposing for their power rates. Let's say the next period is February 1st. So they'll see what is Eversource and Unitil putting forward for their rates. What are we, the coalition, buying power for? And we want to try to meet or beat those rates, and they will set a rate or a set of rates for all member communities. So we will pay the same as any other member community or any other household that's in any member community across, unless those communities have opted for a higher renewable energy content as their default. But in essence, they're doing the negotiating on our behalf, and they will tell us what the rates are at least 30 days prior to the rate changing.
So we are all working as a partnership together in the towns. What if a certain town decided that they wanted to go at a higher level, say 50% or 100%? Does that change anything?
It won't impact our rates.
No. So a few communities have chosen to do that. And so that is an entirely community by community choice. Some towns have even created their own rate that has like an extra 1/10 of a cent to it. For example, the city of Nashua just did this. And so that extra 1/10 of a cent is building up a reserve fund for them. So then in what Mark had touched on a little while ago is these communities have the ability to accrue these reserves to then invest in their own local energy products. But when we create the rates, that is all set by our CEO. And we have a 20-seat board of directors. And that board is made up of different people from towns who are a part of the coalition. So it's really kind of driving, like, our membership is really driving the decisions on how we run and how we operate.
If a client wanted to, what should a client do if the client wants to up to a certain degree? Should they call before September 25 and say, I would like to go this way or that?
Correct.
Because what is it called, the deconnect or
The
something?
default, the default is Granite Basic. Yep. Yep.
They should call.
Yes.
Yep.
or email.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah. And you've got those rates that were on the letter. They're also on the Hopkinton Community Power website. So you can look and say, oh, if you're interested in higher renewable content, what would it cost? And you can call. Sure. To you in the front and then sir in the black.
My supplier is Smart Energy. I opted to have more renewable energy products. Am I automatically enrolled? Or not? Whoever.
The answer would be no, you would not be automatically enrolled because the Smart Energy is a competitive supplier. And like Madeline said, that's one of the exceptions. So you would be, and myself included, I'm with a third party energy supplier right now, Direct Energy. And so I wouldn't be automatically enrolled either unless I first called to switch, to say, well, it might be a two-step process. I might need to switch back to Eversource, wait a month, and then switch to Community Power Hopkinton. But I would want to, again, make sure to call my Direct Energy supplier, in your case, Smart Energy, to say, can you remind me, is there a early termination fee if I end my participation with you now? That's what everyone is concerned with. We don't want anyone to be disadvantaged by having an inadvertent penalty.
Tell me how much renewable energy sources they use versus, the top level, Clean 100 or.
Well, my assumption would be probably that the Smart Energy is providing the same basic generic level of renewable energy, the 24.3%, unless you have specifically signed up with them for a program that has an enhanced or an elevated level of renewable energy. They might have several different tiers of that.
I'm thinking we should look at her bill. After
Sure.
we're done.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Sarah.
Glad to
Yeah,
do that.
yeah, let's do that at the end and
We
someone
have
can,
that information on
Yeah.
there, get a better feel for.
great. Sarah.
Pop up and have a brownie and a little consulting.
It's pretty simple to push. As I opt in and, I decide to, pay the rate, is there an administrative rate also for the coalition for this expenses, or are all your expenses coming through that, strictly through that rate I'm paying?
That the administrative, the cost of operating the coalition is all baked into your supply rate. Yep. Sir, and then back to you.
So I see the different power options, different rates of renewable. And then there's, in this information talks about renewable energy certificate purchases. So let's say I do opt for a higher level of clean energy. Who's auditing that that's actually happening? Because it's all the same that comes out of the oven.
Right.
Same power line, right?
Same power.
Yeah, yep, it's all the same electrons going through. And we have the data of, okay, who is opted into 50% clean energy, for example. And then since people, Hopkinton Community Power customers are through the coalition, we can look at that data and say, okay, they used 650 kilowatt hours this month, and 50% of, they chose for 50% renewable energy. And the state minimum requirement is around 24%. And so then how do we equate to that other 26%? And that is through the renewable energy certificate. And so you would pay essentially a rate of like maybe 5 cents per kilowatt hour to or the coalition would do this on behalf of the customer, because you would pay a little bit more for that higher renewable content. And that little bit more you're paying that money is going towards local clean energy generators within New Hampshire.
If you can verify that's actually the source of power that some percent of
Correct.
and with renewable energy certificates, is it actually clean power? Is it somebody, some company paying into a fund, kind of greenwashing their non-clean energy?
Yeah, so we've developed partnerships with specific solar generators, hydro and wind within the state of New Hampshire. And so we have we work directly with them.
And just out of curiosity, would this extra information be something that that is included in like the annual report that you produce to talk about all those extra details?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I haven't been here for a full year yet, so I haven't been around for an annual report. But we're subject to all right to know laws. And so we publicize our budgets, what we spend, where it goes. All of that is public information on our website.
Great. Ma'am, in the back.
I understand that Eversource is still delivering, like, power lines, maintaining them. But I just want to make sure my bill is still gonna come from Eversource, my automatic payments are still gonna happen, I call Eversource when my power. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Good. In the front here.
How does Eversource calculate its delivery charge? Is it based on the number of kilowatts or the cost of the kilowatt?
Both.
Well, it's based on the number of kilowatt hours that you consume. So they have a
A rate.
rate that's
Mhm.
per kilowatt hour of energy that you use.
My bill here is the energy is $84 and the delivery is $120.
Mhm.
So if I'm curious if I'm gonna be paying less, say, for the energy. And that-
Yeah.
Is that gonna change delivery?
No.
No,
The only way you can change your delivery is to use less energy or go lobby the Public Utilities Commission to make Eversource drop its charges.
How often? First of all, can Eversource change the delivery charges? I know they've already had an increase in delivery. And they're planning one for next year, which is really gonna be much more.
They are.
20% over 2 years. So they can only do that, what, every 6 months, is it like the regular rate?
Let's talk to our utility expert here, Vice Chair Ekberg.
I'm being pointed at because I work for the New Hampshire Department of Energy and I'm a part involved in regulation of our electric utilities. And so we are currently, Eversource has filed a rate case and as you say, sir, has requested an increase in their distribution rates. And so that's a process that's going to go on for the reviewing all of their, the details of their requests is going to go on for the better part of a year. But you're right, they did have, as part of that case, they had a temporary increase that was granted to them during this period of looking at the rate case, and that impacted ratepayers on August 1st.
Yeah, so that's like stopgap increase, anticipating a further increase.
Exactly. And that will all be worked out and arm wrestled over, and we'll have, several, wrestling matches, death matches, we'll have cage fights, we'll have all kinds of
Yeah.
nastiness going on.
See a bunch of people picketing TUC over this stuff. And then the other question I had is, how often can the suppliers change their price for the energy?
Well, the utilities, as we've talked about here, the regulated electric utilities change their prices twice a year. Once on February 1st and then on August 1st. And those rates then are generally the residential rates that people pay are the same for those 6-month periods. You do have other rate options if you prefer to choose a monthly varying rate, but most people prefer the stable 6-month price option. other utilities, not utilities, other competitive suppliers, for instance, I've had the exact same rate for almost 3 years with Direct Energy. And my 36-month contract is pretty soon coming to an end. So it's a convenient time for me to join up with this bold new plan here. And I think it will save me a little bit of money. I've had a pretty good rate for 3 years, but so hopefully that helps.
Well, it just means that they can. We can
Yeah.
get one rate when.
Yeah.
August.
Yeah.
Come February, we can go up there.
It could.
Is that regulated how much they go up, or they just say, well, this is our cost?
You
That
mean the
is not
Community Power
regulated.
Coalition? Is that what you mean
The-
Hopkinton Community Power?
The energy rate, the energy service rate is not regulated per se. It is approved, but the utilities go out to bid every 6 months and get bids from large competitive energy suppliers who use their crystal balls to figure out what they think the electricity market is gonna be in the future, and add in risk premiums and executive bonuses and all the secret numbers we don't know anything about. And those numbers are then presented to the Public Utilities Commission, who does approve them. But we are not necessarily, the Public Utilities Commission is not necessarily, they don't have control over those energy prices, the market price.
Do they audit them? In other words, they say, okay, we want to go up 15%. And does the PUC say, all right, we want to see what
I'm gonna-
the components are?
Sir, I'm going to jump in for a second and say, can I ask you to take that off after the meeting? If that's okay. I just want to make sure that others have a chance to ask questions. I know, I'm just trying to get,
The volatility of prices, what we have to worry about.
The prices are volatile, energy prices are volatile, and I guess the shorter answer is no. The Public Utilities Commission does not audit that. The Public Utilities Commission reviews the prices that competitive suppliers provide to Eversource to supply the energy. And those prices are either take it or leave it, because those competitive suppliers say, this is what we bid to give you the energy. And if Eversource doesn't take any of those bids, well, they're going to have to buy energy on the market themselves. And that's not something they're generally in the business of doing anymore. So, but we can talk more about that. Glad to.
Just kind of guys, want to thank you for every time you had a great.
thank you. Thanks a lot. I appreciate that. In the back, sir.
But with that said, I think it's all something that said, if you're not automatically enrolled, if you've got solar and you're net regulated at this point, is that correct?
Correct.
So does that have to do with the part that you may be getting Rex because you're already signed up with solar and what used to be called net? I don't even like calling it that anymore, because when I built my system, Eversource used to credit me the same amount of money on the way out as I paid at night buying the power back in. Now, if I ship power to my neighbor's house, they give me 13 cents thereabouts, so it was. And then at night I paid 22. So that's what's been going on. Also, I feel will have an effect on the future rates of this, because I think that gap, as the suits end up in legislature, but in many times, as the suits go in there and they keep crying misery, I think that gap between what people get paid, including the co-op, what generators get paid for the power they're selling, and the power that people are paying, that gap's gonna get larger. I was just down in southeastern Massachusetts at 2 days down there, and there were some folks in California, and they're down to about 2 or 3 cents for power paid out in California. California was one of the first states that went through this. So this has all happened previously. You really want to see what's going on. So there's that piece of it, there's the Rex piece of it, and then there was automatically enrolled. And what is the benefit to the town as the town? Or is this just sort of a group meeting amongst people trying to help citizens out?
Right, okay, so let me try to take those, couple of things.
Yeah, several questions all there
Okay, yeah.
at once, Rick.
So, I mean, on the question about net metering, so if you're currently net metering, Eversource will, or Unitil will have, should have communicated to the Community Power Coalition that you are a net meter customer and you will not be automatically enrolled. And the primary reason for that is right now, the coalition is not able to get the data that they need from the utility to be able to compensate you for your net metering. At some point that will change, but right now they don't get the data to be able to properly compensate net meter customers. So at some point that will change. So it's not about RECs, it's just not having the data to be able to pay you for the energy you're putting into the grid.
If I could respond to the question about benefit to the town, really the benefit is to the residents and the businesses in town. If they take advantage of that, the town has a competitive energy supply or now. When that contract expires, the town may go to community power based on what the costs are.
And so the town, this is sort of a presentation like solarizing type thing, I guess, where companies like Revision went into town, companies went in and they bid on towns and getting the work and having the solar to New London,
Wow.
to Warner, to Canterbury, all of that. Not know
It's similar, but a little different in that in this case, in order to launch community power, your town has to actually either, depending upon how your town governance is, has to authorize community power. So in our case, town meeting authorized the town of Hopkinton to have community power, which means that if you're on default supply, you automatically switch unless you opt out. So it's a little different in that way. This was enabled by the vote of voters at town meeting, which is different than like the solarized campaigns.
Right, so I'd say this is something more than just informational. This is information about something that is going to happen. It's happening. It's not just information about something that could happen. Yeah.
Why don't you hang on? I'm going to keep moving around. So you had your hand raised before, and then I'll come to you in the red. Oh, you're good? Okay.
Next rates that are announced 6 months from now, Eversource comes in with a rate that's lower than the community.
Yeah.
I mean, their business, if they want to be cutthroat, they can underbid, and then we're now a competitor to them, we're not in this together. We're taking some of their product. What happens if they come in with a lower price?
Well, first of all, it's important to know that utilities do not make any profit on the sale of electricity. They make their profit on the delivery of electricity from owning the poles and wires and transformers and substations and trucks and the billing systems. So the actual electricity, they are more or less agnostic about whether I get my electricity from Direct Energy or these folks get their electricity from Smart Energy, or whether you get your energy from Eversource default service. There is no profit associated with the electricity. They get their profit from, as we said, regardless of who you get your electricity from, Eversource is going to deliver it to your house, and that part of your bill isn't going to change. So that's where they're getting they earn a profit on those hard assets and the use of those.
The system is agnostic.
Well,
And
because
we're making money by offering something cheaper than they can. That
Well-
doesn't sound agnostic.
it's a complicated universe, that's for sure. And part of the challenge is that Eversource and the other utilities basically are required to go to the market to purchase, to get responses to their energy RFPs at certain points in time. And one of the advantages that the Community Power Coalition has is that they are not governed by those same rules. They can purchase power at any time during the year. They can purchase power for different lengths of contracts. They might be able to go to the market and buy, oh, energy is really cheap right now. Let's see if we can buy a chunk of power for 12 months or 24 months at a low price and add that into their portfolio of energy, which they're going to deliver to us, or provide to us. Eversource will continue to deliver it. So because they have flexibility in how and when they buy electricity, that gives them some opportunities that the utilities don't have.
Yeah,
Sure,
so,
and then we'll-
just so I understand that, Eversource doesn't actually own any power plants anymore.
That's absolutely correct.
So they're buying it and they're saying they're not marking it up in a way, or are they allowed to cover their costs?
They don't mark up the cost of the electricity, no. They collect some small administrative costs that they have for running an RFP and processing all that and paying for their employees to do that. But generally, the tens of millions of dollars that they pay for their electricity is a pass-through expense. That's correct.
And then, I think I thought I understood something and now I'm confused by some of the questions I got asked. The utilities, if you get your power from them, they go to the PUC every 6 months to get their rate approved.
Correct.
Hopkinton Community Power, if I'm saying that right? Those rates can change at any time with 30 days notice?
No,
They-
Hopkinton Community Power at this point will update its rates every 6 months at the same interval as the utilities.
But
Tool with us as subscribers to that, or is that just what we've agreed to do in words and not in writing?
Yeah, so we have a risk management committee, and the members of those committees are people from the different towns that make up the coalition. And so the reason we do a 6-month rate is to maintain that apples to apples comparison of our rate to the utilities, because our priority is the customers and New Hampshire residents, making sure they're getting the best rate. So we just want to make things as transparent and clear as possible, so they know they're getting the best rate at the time. And we are looking into potentially, if people are interested in longer term contracts of being like a rate that's a year, we're working into developing those, just to add to the more options people have. But at minimum, we'll do 6 months.
So rates that are set that we see here for Hopkinton, are they the same for the other towns that participate?
Correct.
Every member town's getting the same rates through the coalition. That's actually I think one of the benefits of the coalition versus some of the private brokers where doesn't work that way. I'm going to go to you and then over to you. You got it.
But the important thing with that call is to make sure you don't have an early termination fee.
Correct.
Mhm.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
So you're on the breaks, great, at this sign. But I saw a letter and I saw there's a nice chart of where the power's coming from. But my biggest concern is about liability, seeing other states like California, Texas, are already subject to brownouts. But who's responsible for providing the energy system? Now, the future, whatever it is, energy is in the wheelhouse, but I'm forced to have to begin to understand this, but I know that on the letter, so maybe my questions sort out the road. It's about reliability. How
will we have any brownouts?
In-
But I know that August first, if I wasn't reading the fake news, ISO New England said we were pretty much at capacity with full air conditioning use, but that could be fake news. I don't know. I didn't check.
Well, ISO New England, that is the independent system operator for New England, with headquartered down in Massachusetts.
Maybe that, I'll worry about that.
Well, they're the ones who are in charge of our entire New England energy grid and making sure that we all collectively have sufficient generating capacity to provide for what they forecast are the energy needs for all of us. There are regional transmission organization, the RTO, and they are regulated by FERC, the United States Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. There are times when they do issue alerts in New England because, of course, all generating plants are subject to various problems. Something could happen, like my car breaks down. Well, so could a generating plant. It could happen. And if that's the case, we may suddenly find ourselves with not quite enough generating capacity to maintain the operating reserves that ISO New England likes to have. But I don't think we've had any major problems. I do believe earlier this summer, there was an emergency OP4 or OP2 call to something. It didn't really impact any of us. It's the energy geeks in the background were a little freaked out for about 6 or 8 hours, but
But if we have this record-breaking
Yeah.
summer, the hottest since 1872, we could see this in the future. We could see the same past with low temperatures in the winter.
Yeah, and I
We
think
could,
that,
but-
but I guess I would just say for community power, it doesn't change our risk in Hopkinton in any way, right? So we are essentially, we have the same risk as any other Eversource customer or ISO New England customer of as a brownout.
Fear-based
Mhm.
election, but it's
Right.
a good one thing, saying
Mhm.
who's responsible for.
Yeah,
Who are the experts on
Yeah.
the coalition, what's their
And-
background, are they elected, or, how are they stored power, what energy's cheap?
Well,
I look at the website.
I think it's also a useful question because, as Mark, I think, is trying to say, this action here to start the Hopkinton Community Power is a very sort of separate and distinct action. It's distinct from the responsibilities of maintaining the regional power grid and ensuring that there's enough generating capacity to provide all of our needs collectively. This is a separate thing altogether than that. So doing this doesn't really change our risk at all as far as, are we at more risk of not having enough power here in our town, or the answer to that is no.
Okay, yeah, so
Yeah.
that's where I don't know why.
Yeah.
Exactly here,
Mhm.
I see that it
Yeah.
was. I think for the household on which I'm staying, it is an
Mhm.
they have to opt out, it's automatic for them, I think. So.
That's correct.
Yeah,
But
so,
whether you're in Hopkinton Community Power, or whether you're getting your energy from Eversource as a default service customer, your risk of a brownout is the same. There's no
Eversource's
difference.
responsibility is the same to Hopkinton Power.
Yes,
Subscribers, if you will,
it is.
as it is to someone I don't know.
yes,
Exactly. That's very much the case. If a tree,
Time would be the same.
yep, if the transformer outside your home blows up, it doesn't matter to Eversource whether you're getting your power from the Community Power Coalition or whether you're getting it from Direct Energy from Texas as the company that I work with, or Smart Energy, or Eversource themselves. Their goal is to fix the transformer and get the power back into your house. Yeah.
They wouldn't even know.
Well, they would know, they do have the information in their giant customer database, so.
In an emergency, they certainly wouldn't be looking in the files.
No, they're not. Their goal is to go out and put the new poles up and get the wires back up and make sure everybody has the power they need. That's their goal. Yeah.
and that's what they're required to do as a regulated utility that delivers our power, sir.
catering. Do you anticipate that within a year, 2 years?
What's your crystal ball there?
It's tough to say. I don't want to speak on anything too prematurely or give false hope around anything. So I can't really give a timeline, but I can assure that it's advantageous for the utilities who are getting pressure to release the data and come up with systems to be able to do it. And it's pressure on us because we want to be able to serve these net metering customers. So it's people are working really hard on it, and we're trying to get it done as fast as possible. How fast that is or putting a time on that is really hard to say.
Really, yeah, it's not something that is.
It's the utilities are required by law essentially to provide this information to us. And at the moment, it's them lacking the systems and the way they track their data. Essentially, it's hard for them to transfer that over.
She's nice about it. Yes, ma'am.
And they're just, will, HCP be sending us information telling us of the rate change?
So on the Hopkinton Community Power, the new rates will be uploaded to the website. So anyone is welcome to go and view. We also, on our website, there's an option where you're able to subscribe to any notifications. We really try to minimize how much we send out. I'm the one usually writing these emails. I don't want to be spamming your inbox. And we'll always send rate announcements to people on that subscribed list. Yep, we always design our rate cards to reflect what ours is compared to the other utilities, just to emphasize the transparency.
And we'll try to do that in terms of our community power committee is continuing. And so I think we will add that information to our community power, the Hopkinton based webpage. And I from my standpoint, if we don't expect this, but if for some reason the coalition's rate was higher than the utility default rate, we would certainly, we would do everything we could to communicate that out to the community, because the whole point of this is to save you money. We don't expect that because of the way the coalition is structured and their whole approach to procurement and establishing reserves to stabilize rates. But, we can't predict the future. So if that situation hits us, we're going to communicate pretty actively because we would want people to know. Sir, and then over to you.
I just want to clarify a question online in the discussion. I believe I asked this a year ago and had the answer, but it seemed conflicting. For families that might go through other source and require some assistance or a discounted rate due to income or circumstances, if they're involved in community power, does community power on the same things that Eversource would do or no?
Yes, so I actually read our FAQs because I had a feeling this was going to get asked tonight, and I wanted to make sure I could properly address this for you. Yes, all of that is honored. All the electric assistant programs will maintain the same.
I didn't answer it for someone else incorrectly, but I thought when in the infancy of this, it was answered that you would need to stay with Eversource.
Thanks for asking that.
I
Sir.
just want to add, we were talking about email addresses earlier. I don't even think Eversource has my email address. I'd love to get, any information that you could send. How do I get it?
Yeah. So we're working on so we have two websites, and we're currently working on merging them. But so there's the communitypowernh.gov, and that is where you'll find your town website. And then there's also cpcnh.org. And that website really just covers a lot more of the coalition itself. So that's where you'll find all of our formation documents, all of our budgets, our community benefit reports. And within there's a place where you can sign up and just say, I want to receive action alerts about updates within the coalition. And then that email just in your name just gets added to a database. So then when we send out the alerts, we just have a whole email list.
What's the website?
It is cpcnh.org. Yep, yeah, or that, yep, the community leader sign up.
And my last question is a second question. The state of date on mine is the 9th and 10th of the month, with everything I just looked at. They are my supplier, so I think what you're saying is that if I don't do anything on November 10th or so roughly, I'll get a bill and it'll show Hopkinton Community Power as my source, is that correct?
Yes.
So, thank you.
Great. Sir.
I think relative to her question, and I'm not clear about this, so we should be, but basically, we're talking about electrons that are just moving all over the place, right? So buying electricity is kind of like theoretical, because relative to power coming or going to us or somebody else, they can't tell like they have a faucet, they can say, oh, we're gonna shut Hopkinton off now, we're gonna Brown, and we're gonna shut off this region, is that correct?
Well, you're correct that I think buying electricity is somewhat theoretical. I mean, we don't know who's, you know,
Where it's
we don't know whose electrons we're using or where they come from when we use them at our house. And you know, if there was ever you know, a need for a brownout, I'm not sure who or how those decisions are made. I mean, I think ISO New England would be making decisions about, you know, generally reducing the voltage on a system-wide level or in certain areas, but that's, again, that stuff's all completely separate from what our discussion here is
Right, and I
about.
think that's separate from them, their determination is not going to be based on anything we do, they're going to look at the region as a region.
Right,
And say,
right,
as a whole,
yeah,
we have a problem over here, and if
Yeah.
we don't fix this, this is gonna be massive over here, so we need
Right.
to adjust, do a little bit over here to say this whole thing, that type of thing.
yeah.
ISO, that's how they see it, it's a regional thing. It doesn't matter where we're getting our electrons from.
Yeah, I mean,
Correct?
there's one thing that I want, just so there's not a misconception in terms of like the faucet turning on and off that for me feels important. It's not that the faucet will turn on and off for Hopkinton, but the cumulative energy purchasing decisions of our utilities, our community power entities, they will affect where energy is coming from, right? So the faucet of an individual energy generator will be more on or more off over time based on whether their energy is being purchased. And so more people opting for more renewable energy content, there will be more renewable energy faucets over time, and fewer fossil fuel faucets, or the fossil fuel plant faucets will tighten over time. So not on an individual community basis, but collectively that will influence
Mhm.
the opening and closing of faucets
So it's-
across our grid.
So it's a.
So it's not totally theoretical in that way.
It is a commodity then that's being purchased from different locations, different power plants, from the people that own the plants.
Exactly.
So if we are paying less to somebody in Texas than we are in California or whatever, then those type of things are going to be adjusted based on where our power, you know, this is a.
In a mega way.
Thing.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And,
Oh, hold on. Sorry. Did you have one more question? I want to just let's finish your questions. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
fine. We brought that up there. But basically somebody.
If everybody leaves and doesn't take these brownies, by the way, I'm gonna be pretty ticked off.
Your son will be happy though, you know, because you'll bring more home.
Go ahead.
Energy grid in New England, we have one energy grid that we're on as far as the region of.
Yeah.
Like Massachusetts, us are on the same grid.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Yep.
How
It's
many grids
the,
are on that one grid? Just New England itself, or New York on there too as well?
well, we have interconnections to the neighboring grids. We have interconnections that come down through Canada. We have a New Brunswick tie line. There are several lines that connect us up through northern New Hampshire and Vermont to Hydro Quebec. There's an interconnection into the New York grid through Western Vermont. There's energy flowing all over the place right now. It's all over the place. It's moving.
Now, does Eversource provide, do they have generators that help the community? We have a power outage. They have their own generators that start up their side of the process.
No, Eversource owns no generation anymore. They sold as a requirement, they sold all of their generation. So they don't own any hydro plants. They don't own the Merrimack Station. They don't own Newington, nothing anymore. They're all privately owned and they operate in coordination with ISO New England. ISO New England is the one that tells them when to operate and pays them to put energy on the grid. So that's how, that's a whole separate universe. Yeah.
So they supply the energy in an emergency basis if something happens. They're gonna put.
There are emergency small generators located around New England that operate at the direction of ISO New England when they're called into service. Yeah. Peaker plants. Yeah. There's some of them operate on jet fuel. Some of them operate on diesel. Most of the time they're just sitting there quiet doing nothing until those super hot days or super cold days when ISO New England says, holy cow, all hands on deck, fire it up. And here comes the money.
Right, the stinkiest, most expensive energy we can get, but they avoid brownouts. Sir, back to you, and then we'll go over to.
Interestingly enough, we have two bike. But I know all product. Those people sell to, they have to have a customer that's big enough that can guarantee that consumption is one. Limited on like so it would be cool if we could use that. Gee, it's being produced right now. That doesn't work out, right?
If I could just explain the hydro facility in the middle of Kentucky, that is in effect owned by the town, and under a long-term lease, it's leased out, and we receive revenues for that, which was approved at a couple of town meetings ago. I believe the recs from that go to UNH. Correct.
It's Lori Larks.
Yeah.
Yes.
But with Hopkinton Community Power, I know that one of the coalition's interests is working with communities to see, can we procure power and or RECs from local energy facilities? So they have a contract with UNH, but at some point that contract will be up. We could be working with the coalition to say, hey, we would love it if we could procure our power or RECs from that facility. Yeah.
And we recently brought on a directors of projects and programs who is kind of the point person on our team to help towns facilitate these kinds of projects as well. So it's definitely in the future, we are looking ahead at providing that.
And then just relative to, you had mentioned about, I have a solar installer. I'm curious as to how this works with the division or whatever company you've selected. I mean, what is the benefit to them, and what function do they perform relative to this co-op?
Is that for Madeline?
Yeah, because you had mentioned that you are working with.
You said you're.
Yeah, when we work with the solar generator. So when residents decide to opt up to a higher renewable content, to supplement that, we will purchase RECs from these renewable generators. So that is essentially investing in local renewable energy generators to continue to allow them to continue to operate and expand and grow.
Said people build wherever it is, there's companies all over, instead of building fields full where dump tops, of course, landfills. Out of solar, or whatever.
Yeah, like for example, the city of Lebanon, they just developed a project, for landfill gas to then kind of use, the way to convert that into energy.
And then last. But anyway, so the other thing is, so the cost of the power itself is, it varies, how 45 to 55% of the typical bill. I could be off.
Mhm.
And so with that, we're talking about, I think it depends on what the PUC does with transmission charges, which keep going up, but, in any case, have you guys looked at, because I saw some theoretical potential rates and savings, so you must have some idea of where that's at, and done some research on that. As, if I'm paying X amount per watt right now, and I were to join the group, as a percentage of that part of the bill, am I gonna maybe save 10%, or am I gonna save 20% on the rate? Have you guys
Yeah.
looked at that at all? Where might that be?
Can you go back to the rate slide, Neil? So in this rate, one more, in this rate period, if you switched over, you would be saving about 20% on your supply rate. You'd be going from, if you were on the basic, right? So at Eversource, 10.4 cents a kilowatt hour, Granite Basic with Cume Power, 8.6 cents. So now that difference will change from rate period to rate period. The last rate period, it was very small, it was a very small savings. The one before that was quite large.
Mhm.
But this rate period is 20%, is about 20% savings on your supply, on your energy supply cost.
That scenario, you're saving, somewhere around maybe 10% of the bill.
If your supply was half the cost of your bill, it might be about, yeah. I think that's a reasonable like ballpark. It'll be different for everybody. Yeah.
Going, you say 10%, saving 2%, saving.
Yeah.
And I never thought.
Yep.
The probably the way I look at it, the comparison would be for an average customer using 650 kilowatts a month, the savings is $11 a month. Because I don't think we want to deal with percentages, because as mentioned, we don't know what the Public Utilities Commission is going to allow. For
Well,
temporary.
that's why for me, sometimes it's easier to just float that generic chunk.
Sure.
I have to put everything in kind of like marshmallows.
Gotcha. Did you have another question? Yeah, thank you. Did you have another question? And I think maybe we'll take a couple more questions, then bring it to a close, and then we'll hang out for a few minutes if there's more, but I want to, you please. Oh my gosh.
It's a
You
special.
get a gold star for good questions and taking a brownie.
You only have to ask.
With-
It has nuts in it, so if you have nut allergy, I just want you to know.
What sort of, it seems like you're pushing renewable power. I think we need a mix, because I've been told by the people in the field that our grid is not that stable grid for all renewables, so it's an incremental step up to renewable for Hopkins and Power, right? And that's accessible on the website to see the portions. I know there was something in a letter which I forgot to bring with me.
Yeah, so that's called the environmental disclosure label. So in New Hampshire, all basic default energy supply, it has, and whether that's coming from us, from Eversource, Unitil, whoever, their energy mix needs to have 24.3% renewable energy in it. And that can be a mixture of solar, wind, hydro. And so when you go to the ISO market, it's, when you're purchasing, it's a mix of the different products.
And just, I want to be clear, we're not pushing renewables, actually. I mean, we're giving options, more options than you have right now for, I mean, I'm pushing renewables because I work for a renewable energy company, but Hopkinton Community Power isn't pushing for renewables. We're just giving more renewable energy options than you have with your default supply. I just want to be clear about that because we discussed that a lot. At some point, if the town's interested, if the town adopts renewable energy or climate goals, that might change. We might decide we really want a higher level to be our default, but right now we're just giving options. Also, there's a really cool thing, ISO New England, which Steve has talked about really well and described well. They have an app as well as a website, and you can look at any given moment and see what is the resource mix, what percent of our electricity is coming from the different sources. Yeah, so like, you know, right now, 54% natural gas, 23% nuclear, 9% hydro, 5% renewables, a little bit other. But you can, if you're ever curious, and it changes over the course of the seasons and the days, but it's kind of interesting to look at.
Again, I apologize that I missed in the beginning, and I don't know if we covered this, but the earlier meetings before it was adopted in the town, if I was understanding correctly, by having the community in this cooperative, there were some credits that got built up, and then if we exited, something would happen to those credits. But is my understanding that correctly, that a little pool of revenue or credits towards doing things does build up? And if I am understanding that correctly, is that then what does those credits get applied to? Could that be applied to, say, down the road in 10 years? Hey, we really want to buy power
Right.
from the Tookie.
Yeah.
There, or another project that makes sense for the town.
Do you want to speak to that? There's two different reserves that the coalition manages, one of which we will pay into through your rates that, and Madeline can speak to it, but essentially contributes to rate stability and some other functions of how the coalition operates. That's automatic, right? And then there's a discretionary reserve that we could choose to do through Hopkinton, which we are not choosing to do right now, which we could talk about as well, but want to say a little bit more?
Yep, so the reserves, so there's we're a nonprofit, and so when we design our rate, that there's this little margin that could be considered profit if that's how we operated, but instead those funds get deposited into an account, and we keep track of how much of those funds are coming from each community. And then, so the Community Power Coalition, we've only been operating fully for a year in April. So we're a pretty young company. And so right now we need to be able to accrue these reserves to have enough purchasing power to purchase enough cash on hand to purchase 60 days worth of energy, like on a whim, and then 120, 180 by a certain timeline. So by like 5 years, we need to have 180 days cash on hand to purchase energy. And those funds can also be used in a way, if there's something that happens and energy prices everywhere just spike up, which we've seen in the past couple of years. The coalition is able to either use a little bit of those reserve funds or adjust the amount of the rate that is going towards those to kind of help deflate the rate price and shield the customers from the volatility. And then there's the other reserve, which that is towns. That is an independent choice they make if they want to implement that. And that will accrue money specifically for their town to invest in any kind of energy product or program that they would like to see down the road. Did that answer your question well?
I think that was what I recall from a couple years ago, and I guess I haven't been able to follow too much of this, and so I didn't know if the town landed on adding to that other reserve or where we exactly landed. I guess, as a Eversource customer, because I'm not locked into someone else, and at town meeting, I was definitely in favor of why not have other options for anyone in town, why prohibit them? But what is, other than the potential of other community members getting a lower rate, is there any other big benefit to signing on to community power. Is the ultimate goal.
For you as an individual, ratepayer?
Oh, I'm trying to say, like, if you go and spend your money at this person's small store, you're probably not gonna win that grow.
Yeah.
It's not for-
I think that over time, right, the intent, and then when I look at the mission of the Community Power Coalition, over time, the intent is to use the purchasing power and resources of community power to drive, I would say, greater energy independence and more local and renewable energy sources. And so that is a long-term play. But over time, because of the way that they will be able to procure power, because of reserves that certain communities will decide to build up and more local control, I think there will be benefits for essentially New Hampshire having more of its own energy. That's, I think, the goal. How that plays out, how long it takes, but I think that is a sort of part of it. But it's a long-term thing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are confused about that aspect of what is the whole point, you know, it's just another taxation of the government, blah, blah, blah. I've heard all the noise and I'm like.
There's no taxation and it's not a government takeover.
Right,
It's
I'm aware of that.
right.
But
Sure.
it shows the sense of the community doesn't fully understand what this is.
Yeah, I would say the two biggest things that we provide directly to the community is lower rates and local control. The town of Hopkinton has a space to kind of they have a space within the coalition to help drive the decisions we make. And when we make decisions, it's on behalf of all of our member towns, which I think is very important. And we also have a space in the legislation. We have a director of regulatory and legislative affairs, and there is a whole committee surrounding that where we are advocating for our ratepayers and really pushing to make sure that any laws or legislation being passed is fully reflective of the ratepayers in New Hampshire and making sure that it's in the favor of the consumer.
You said lower rates in there, but earlier in the conversation, I believe you said that community power could by chance be higher than source. Is that
Yeah, I mean,
spoken there?
yeah, I must have I mean, it's never a 0% possibility.
I said that.
But we
just
have,
to not put you on the spot. And
Um,
I don't think there's no conflict.
yeah,
there.
we have a advantageous purchasing strategy in the way we're
Yeah.
designed, and we don't have as much regulation. So we have a lot more freedom in how we purchase and procure our energy, which gives us a competitive advantage to maintaining lower rates.
Yeah, we expect, I just want to be clear, because like, there's no gotcha here, right? We want to be transparent, right? We believe that by going with coalition, we will consistently be able to deliver lower rates to Hopkinton because of the overall approach, strategy, risk management. But we don't want to promise that forever. And that's the beauty of being able to opt out at any time. I don't want to promise you forever lower rates because we can't conceive of every single scenario that might face us. So the intent is lower rates. That's been the track record. That's a primary purpose. And it is not inconceivable that that might not happen in a rate period. And we just want to be transparent about it.
Great explanation. I guess I don't know if you phrased my question. This lady said she had a certain company and another lady over here had another company and you had a different source. So if I today wanted to sit in price point every one of them and one's a 0.5 cent lower, 1 cent lower, community power is 2 cents lower, and then Eversource is, higher. If I could get a lower rate from a direct energy that really doesn't represent Hopkinton or anything by paying another penny to be in the co-op, that local control to me would maybe be more worth it. Is that the kind of concept we're getting at here, and having local electors representing this area versus I have no idea who runs direct energy, if that's a
national company or for profit, or, I don't know, but
Yeah.
I guess.
I would say that's certainly a big part of it for me. You know, that we have
Locally.
shopping locally, being part of an organization that's a New Hampshire-based organization that is looking, that has the interests of us. And none of us are committed to, I mean, if I join, like I said, I've had a 3-year contract with Direct Energy. Most competitive suppliers, they offer you their best rate if you do give them a commitment for 12 months or 24 months. If you just choose one of their shorter term programs, well, my experience so far in looking at that information and the choices that they offer, they're not a great deal. The Community Power Coalition is offering prices that are better than Eversource. And there's not a 6-month commitment for anyone. Any individual can leave whenever they want to. If their prices turn out to be higher, or if whatever, you don't like the color of the t-shirts they're selling, whatever it is you don't like, you can leave for whatever reason you want. And
Is there a
That's-
need if the pool gets bigger?
maybe it'll be better.
Yeah,
when the pool's bigger.
purchasing wholesale electricity, the larger blocks we're buying it in, usually you'll get a little bit of a better price. So, originally, little backstory here. So Community Power, the program was created in legislation in 1996, and then it sat dormant for almost 25 years because there was a flaw where they made it a program where customers had to opt in rather than automatically being rolled in. And so it failed to create the economy of scale to purchase these large blocks of energy. And so they were never able to fully achieve those competitive pricing. And then rewind maybe 3 or 4 years ago now, the kind of some people from the coalition and other parts of the state kind of stepped up and reframed it to make it an automatic enrollment opt-out program so we can achieve that economy of scale and have enough people participating to be able to purchase in larger blocks.
And if I could just add that one of the benefits of the coalition is that you don't have to opt in. Under the utilities default process, 80 to 90% of the residential customers, whether in Hopkinton or statewide, didn't understand, so they just stayed with the utilities default. This is giving them that option without having to do anything.
That's pretty much what Hopkinton is at right now. We're right at about 85% of our people on default supply. Yeah, I mean, I think, sure. And hopefully they'll learn over time. And we've had a lot of hearings and we've had a lot of our information on the website and, but we're all available, right?
Yeah.
Done. And take brownies.
Statewide, just
So how much?
We-
any numbers as to how many have actually taking it, what percentage are taking the clean 100, the clean 50 and the.
Great, so I'll start off. The coalition is now the second largest energy supplier in the state next to Eversource. So we're serving a larger load than Unitil, Liberty, or the New Hampshire Electric Co-op. We are currently with this upcoming launch in October. So this is Hopkinton and 19 other communities. We will be serving 160,000 customers. And I don't have the actual opt action reports off the top of my head, but if you go to that website, cpcnh.org, we post all of our opt action reports. So you can see as a total of people throughout the state who's opted up to a clean 150 have opted down. And you can also see by town. So in a few months from now, when Hopkinton Community Power is fully operating, you can look at that report and just see who's changed their plan in the town.
Hey, Don, do you mind if I bring us to closure as a whole meeting, and we'll just hang out and answer more. People have questions, just come on up, and I just want to respect people's time. It's, Madeline has an hour drive home too, so want to relieve her of duty soon. Thank you all for coming. Much appreciated. And, come on up, get brownies out.